Hello and welcome to Talkos Reads. Today I'll be reading Shadowline. It's the first of the Starfisher trilogy by Glen Cook. Passage at Arms by him is also in the same universe, but not directly related. I've been trying to decide for a long time on what book of his I'd like to read from, and it's been very hard because he has been an amazingly diverse author. Aside from space opera, he also writes high fantasy and low fantasy, which at times can be masterfully and brutally grim. He's most famous for his Black Company series and perhaps the Garrett PI series if you want a little bit lighter or a more comedic touch. This particular piece has a very unique mood. It's filled with action and adventure while simultaneously being tragic and rather melancholic, actually. It follows the Storm family and their patriarch Nias, leading to a devastating showdown on a hell planet, half in boiling sun and half in freezing shade, where a very thin line of shadow provides the only access to vast resources. It sets up a rather apocalyptic battle between these unstoppable forces and draws heavily from Norse mythology and their, Ragnarok myths. I'll be reading a few excerpts from the first couple chapters, some of which are quotes from the framing story narrated by Mouse, one of Storm's sons. So don't get confused if it switches from first person to third. Chapter 1. Who am I? What am I? I am the bastard child of the Shadowline. That jagged rift of sun-broiled stone was my third parent. You cannot begin to understand me, or the Shadowline, without knowing my father. And to know Gnaeus Julius Storm, you have to know our family, and all its convoluted interpersonal relationships and history. To know our family, there is no end to this. The ripples spread, and the story, which has the Shadowline and myself at one end, is an immensely long river. It received the waters of scores of apparently insignificant tributary events. Focusing the lens at its narrowest, my father and Cassius were the men who shaped me most. This is their story. It was also the story of the men whose stamp upon them ultimately shaped their stamp on me. Deep in the fortress of iron, in the iron gloom of his study, Gnaeus Storm slouched in a fat, deep chair. His chin rested on his chest, his good eye was closed. Long gray hair cascaded over his tired face. The flames in the nearest fireplace leapt and swirled in an endless morosco. Light and shadow played out sinister dramas over priceless carpeting, hand-loomed in Earth's old Earth's ancient orient. The shades of might have been played tag among the dark wood beams supporting the stone ceiling. Storm's study was a stronghold within the greater fortress. It was a citadel of his soul, the bastion of his heart. Its walls were lined with shelves of rare editions. A flotilla of tables bore both his collectibles and papers belonging to his staff. The occasional silent clerk came and went, updating a report before one of the chairs. Gnaeus Julius Storm pictured himself as a man on the downhill slide of life, coasting towards its end. He was nearly 200 years old. The ultimate in medical and rejuvenation technology kept him physically 45, but doctors and machines could do nothing to refresh his spirit. One finger marked his place in an old holy book. It had fallen shut where he had drifted off. A time to be born, and a time to die. Storm's one good eye opened. Gray as his hair, it surveyed the heart of his stateless kingdom. He did not see a gold death mask. He saw a mirror that reflected the secret storm. His study contained more than books. One wall boasted a weapons collection, Sumerian bronze standing beside the latest Stress glass multi-purpose infantry small arms. Lighted cabinets contained rare china, cut crystal, and silver services. Others contained ancient Wedgwood. Still more held a fortune in old coins within their velvet-lined drawers. He was intrigued by the ebb and flow of history. He took comfort in surrounding himself with the rack left in its passing. He could not himself escape into yesterday. Time slipped through fingers like old water. A gust from the cranky air system ruffled papers. The banners overhead stirred with the passage of ghosts. Storm took an ancient clarinet from a case lying beside his chair. He examined the reed, wet it. He began playing a piece not 5 men alive could have recognized. He had come across the sheet music in a junk shop during his old Earth visit. The title, Stranger on the Shore, had caught his imagination. It fit so well. He felt like a stranger on the shore of time, born a millennium and a half out of his natural era. He belonged more properly to the age of Nollies and Hawkwood. The lonely, haunting melody set his spirit free. Even with his family, with friends, or in crowds, Nia's Storm felt set apart outside. He was comfortable only when sequestered here in his study, surrounded by the things which he had constructed a stronghold of his soul. Yet he could not be without people. He had to have them here, in the fortress, potentially available, or he felt even more alone. His clarinet never left his side. It was a fetish, an amulet with miraculous powers. He treasured it more than the closest member of his staff. Paired with the other talisman he always bore, an ancient handgun. It held the long night of the soul at bay. Gloomy, young, old, devoted to the ancient, the rare, the forgotten, cursed with a power he no longer wanted. That was the first approximation of Gnaeus Julius Storm. The power was like some mythological cloak that could not be shed. The more he tried to sloth it, the tighter it clung and heavier it grew. There were just 2 ways to shed it forever. Each required death. One was his own, the other was Richard Hawksblood's. We move on to the 3rd chapter, again from Mouse narrating. Can we understand a man without knowing his enemies? Can we know yin without yang? My father would say no. He would say, if you want to see new vistas of truth, go question the man who wants to kill you. A man lives. When he is young, he has more friends than he can count. He ages. The circle narrows. It turns inward, becoming more closed. We spend our middle and later years doing the same things with the same few friends. Seldom do we admit new faces to the clique. But we never stop making enemies. They are like dragons' teeth flung wildly about us as we trudge along the paths of our lives. They spring up everywhere, unwanted, unexpected, sometimes unseen and unknown. Sometimes we make or inherit them simply by being who or what we are. My father was an old man. He was his father's son. His enemies were legion. He never knew just how many or who they were. It goes on and continues, a lot of good action, a lot of betrayal, treachery, politics. If you don't check out that one, at least check out some of his other works. The Black Company works are exceptionally good, low fantasy. The Dragon Never Sleeps is a excellent example of his space opera, and as I said before, the Garrett P.I. novels are what I would call fantasy urban. Almost urban fantasy, but again, set in a fantasy world. Anyways, go check out Glen Cook, and hope you enjoyed this video. See you later. This is Talkos, signing off.